Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm on my top lane tier list for patch 13.21. So if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. Doing with this patch was a relatively small one. We saw a bunch of changes as a follow-up towards this anti-snowballing patch. Alongside this, we saw a couple of tanks get adjusted, and past that, I kind of want to clear up the top lane tier list, move some champions which I don't believe deserve the tier they're in, and some which are actually outperforming the tier they currently belong in. So, going into this tier list, there are two things which I mainly want to talk about. One is Cassante. Obviously, this champ is really strong at the moment. I'm going to move him up to the S tier. He has been hotfix nerfed. You can no longer get your full Q cast CD down off 2 items. You need 3 items, 3 health items traditionally to get the full CD out of this. So that is a relatively large nerf. However, he is still a top performer of the patch. In elite play, like your high elos, masters, and above, he is still broken. Below that, he's kind of average to weak the further down you go, so just be aware of that. But for the average player, he's an S tier pick. He is very strong at the moment, good displacement tools, good damage, good scaling, not too bad of an early game. He is very strong in the amount of resistances he has. He doesn't have great magic resist options. You are usually going to end up having to go into something like Abyssal, and obviously you pick up the Gargoyles if you are looking at magic resist options, so be wary of that. He also does struggle into heavy kite back CC slow comps, so those are the kind of things you do have to be aware of. But past that, he's practically playable in every situation. He doesn't have hugely losing matchups, bar maybe like the Fiors and the Rumbles, which can really punish him in certain situations. Other than that, you can freely scale. You can look for picks onto ADC. You do a huge amount of damage with your buff on the passive, with the mark true damage going up from 40% to scaling to 75%, I believe. It is really powerful. It does a huge amount of damage. Cassante, obviously in a really good spot. Definitely give him a try. He will probably be nerfed next patch. The other champ which I want to talk about is Kench. He is really, really strong now. He got a huge buff towards his passive. They took away some of the base damage, gave it a nice scaling of 3% to 5%. This kind of a buff really incentivizes heart still. You are now very much tied to this item, but in this situation, he really benefits from it, and he is really strong at the moment. Something like a 54% win rate. In low elo, you can stomp games of this champion now, especially if you are able to snowball with Heartsteel, as you can get the stacks going. You can build things like Demonics if you are looking for a bit more AP to amp your damage, but alongside that, you do tend to just go traditional tank, picking things up like the Spirits. You can go Gargoyles, you can go Full Mail, Sunfires, there's options there. He's in a very good spot at the moment. Definitely give him a try. Alongside this, Mundo got nerfed. He was one of the top performers of the last patch, especially in low elo, where the game duration is longer. He can really benefit from this. They hit him really heavily, losing a massive amount of AD on his E, and just when you lose a decent chunk of your health, overall it puts him down towards the B tier, close to the C tier. He's going to really struggle in elite play. Like, I reckon this champion is gone from like Masters Plus. He will not have that level of security in the scaling that he used to, and even then he really struggled there because most of the games were too fast tempo for him. But in low elo, he will still perform alright, just not broken compared to some of the other tanks. I'd recommend hopping off of him and giving someone like Kench a go. You might find that you can get a bit more success, or maybe even Cassante, as he is a champion which you can take further up into high elo. Alongside this, I'm going to move Briar up. She got nerfed this patch, but her overall win rate and play rate in top lane has begun to stagnate. It makes it a bit easier to read where she actually deserves to be, and she's a high C tier, low B tier champion. Obviously, she might end up getting nerfed again. She's still a very strong performer, especially within the jungle, but the changes helped her with the missing health healing going a bit up, but overall just a bit of a stat bump down. Yeah, the champion can have a decent laning phase. The ER damage reduction combined with the healing can make her quite hard to bully out. Alongside this, she does a huge amount of damage, has good sustain off the W as well. Your main kind of concern is if you do get poked out, then you can really struggle. She has no inherent base health regen, which can make it quite awkward. If you do opt to things like D-Shield and Second Wind, you can get access to those kind of things, but yeah, no base health regen can make it quite hard into heavy poke lanes. Moving on to some of the champions which I just wanted to move about. So Vayne, I'm going to move up to the S tier. Vayne is really strong at the moment. People are beginning to catch on that Vayne is really strong with the likes of the Q max build and then static Triforce. This has kind of been hardcore for a while, but alongside this you do have access to the Essence Reaver, the Storm Razor Essence Reaver Youmuu's build, which is also performing very well. That one's more of just a high high damage one-shot build, whereas the static Storm Razor gives you wave clear, gives you good damage, gives you good survivability. So that one's more of an all-rounder. Overall, Vayne just performing really well at the moment. That was a really strong laning phase, good scaling, really good team fight mobility, really good 1v1 mobility, and overall, yeah, it puts on a really good spot at the moment and can match up with the best of the top laners. Moving on, I want to move Argot up. This is if you're going things like Stridebreaker and Youmuu's. He's really performing quite well with these items at the moment. Obviously, if you're going things like the Jack Show and the Radiant Virtue, he does kind of fall down a tier, but obviously if you're opting into these damage options and you're playing around their things like Stridebreaker's slow, Youmuu's movement speed, and you're using them where necessary, obviously the Youmuu's lethality is really important for looking for early lethals. Stridebreaker allows you to stick to people. If you're going Stridebreaker, it tends to be more of like the standard AD health. You're looking at like a Cleaver, Sterix, Stridebreaker, Shrouder's Gargles, something like that would work quite nicely with that build. With Youmuu's, you just end up swapping out something like the Gargles, picking up the Youmuu's. You'd go like Youmuu's, Cleaver, Sterix, and then Shrouder's. Gives you a bit of tankiness, gives you a huge amount of damage. You can really tear through most champions with that. Obviously, you're looking at a lot of armor pen, which can also allow you to shred tanks. So overall, lots of strengths to the build and puts him in a really good spot at the moment. Moving on is Volibear. If you build a Volibear correctly, he is an A tier borderline S tier champion. This is the Frostfire Spirits build. He works really well with these items as it gives him a lot of healing. They have buffed his healing a lot at this point, and overall, yeah, you do need to like look for the situations where tank is good. Obviously, so many people still go your Nashers, your Hullbreaker, your Riftbreaker, which is really decreasing his win rate quite heavily. So that's kind of the reasoning behind moving him. But overall, yeah, if you build him correctly, you can still pick up things like a Darkseid with the tank variation. He does a huge amount of damage. He has really good sustain and healing, and his damage is really high. He can lane bully, but you do have to be careful if you fall behind when this champion does really struggle. And last but not least is Shen. So Shen, I'm going to move down to the A tier. I obviously have a lot of people who are asking me about Shen. My stance has always been that this champion is really good as just a hold lane and just play around your ADC kind of champion. But lots of people don't play him like that. They like to opt into the heart still and be a bit more aggressive during laning phase, which is why I'm moving him down the tier list a bit. Overall, he's just not performing to the same level if you are playing this aggressive playstyle. And I know most people are just unhappy with the state of Shen at the moment, which is why it's kind of difficult to give like an opinion which makes people happy. But yeah, my overall stance of Shen has always been he's really good as a lane neutralizer. He can go even in most matchups, and if he does struggle, then yes, he will fall behind, but you can play around your ADC. You always have that as a follow-up. Looking at this being carry, like your jungler and your mid laner, he has lots of power for doing that. You can obviously go something like the Radiant Virtue if you're looking to be more supportive, picking things up like the Redemption. You can obviously also go things like Knight's Vow, Full Mail, War, Random Zoman. All these options do work quite nicely to be a cheap supportive tank build on Shen. And yeah, there are paths there. It might not be the best case, but it gives him options, especially in lanes which he can't really play that well. Yeah, the last champion I want to talk about is Silas. Just be on the watch. He is in a really good spot at the moment, especially in mid lane. The Night Harvester Shadow Flame build is really popping up a lot more. This is when you're running something like First Strike and just looking to really amp up your damage with the Q-Max Night Harvester build. You can generate a lot of gold. He goes really well in most laning phases. If he has good ultimates to still, he can be really powerful throughout the entire game. And yeah, the Q-Max gives him a lot of safety. Isn't hugely taxing on the mana costs, and can allow him to farm quite easily from distant range. So overall, those are my thoughts. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.